Okay, so what you need to do is to avoid a situation where you are going to have predatory journals as the sources of the literature that you are going to review. Predatory journals are usually journals that people would pay for to have publications done for them. And so usually those ones would not have been scrutinized by any reviewers. The editor just takes your money and he publishes the paper for you. And so you have to avoid that. One of the ways to avoid that is to avoid a place such as Google Scholar for such things. You can use Google Scholar to do a search on whether the review that you want to do has not already been done by anybody. So that would be your first point of call. You want to do a review. Go to Google Scholar and say, okay, so I have a topic on, say, digital entrepreneurship or financial technologies, or for those in the HR field, I don't know what topics you may have in mind. Any HR people around to give us any area? If not HR, maybe accounting or finance or is anyone? I am. Okay, Moro, please go ahead.
Attribution and performance.
Okay, all right. So that is, you want to do a review on such an area, and so you need to sort of make sure that you okay, so you need to make sure that you are not depending on any predatory journals for such an area or for such a topic that you want to review. And so it should be concept-centric, with these concepts forming an organizing framework for the paper and cover relevant literature, not confining itself to one set of journals or one geographic region. Which means that when you are doing the review, you need to be as open as possible. Don't just restrict yourself to maybe a country, say Ghana or Nigeria or Ivory Coast. Because the contribution that you are making is a PhD. It is supposed to be a globally recognized degree. The PhD is not just restricted to a particular country. There are some who may want to sort of restrict themselves to Africa. That is fine. It would also depend on what your supervisor wants you to look at. So please let's take note of that. I think
yes. So just one on what you just said.
Yes.
So let's say, let me think of a finance topic. Okay, so let's say that I want to find out what's the impact of the ECHO, which is the ECOWAS currency that we're trying to implement. But that, let's say, some export, or are you saying that my literature review should definitely come out of West Africa? Because ECHO is restricted to West Africa.
Boateng, you have no experience.
Yeah, so with the example that you have given, you are specifically focusing on a currency or a jurisdiction within the African continent or the African continent. So it would make sense for you to do that. For example, I am looking at an area that is called the gig economy. The gig economy is not only restricted to Ghana. It is a global thing that is happening, where people are able to use digital platforms to source for short-term work, or some may want to call it employment. And so in the scenario that you have given, that is an African-based study. So limiting yourself to that area would make sense. If your study is your area is not focused on a particular region, then you may want to open that. And like I'm saying, all would also depend on the advice that your supervisor would give you. your study will still be an area that is a global phenomenon, but he may want you to look at what has been done within the African context before you even open up to look at what is happening globally. So please, let's take note of all these dynamics so that we don't just box ourselves and say that, okay, this is what a TA said in class, and so that is what we are limiting ourselves to. There are, for example, a couple of months ago, I did one of the tasks that we were given was to look at the evolution of fintechs, financial technologies in developing countries. That was the task. So even though fintech is a global phenomenon, it's the lecturer said we should just focus on Africa, and so we had to just limit ourselves to Africa. So let's note all those things. Let's move on. I think we have already explained what literature review is. We also looked at the slide already. So we are reviewing the past to inform what we want to do in the future. That is basically one of the key reasons why we would want to do a review. These are some of examples of reviews, literature reviews. This is in the area of entrepreneurship. So we have things like the international expansion of China's small and medium-sized business, status today and future outlook. This let's also take note of how the titles have been coined. The titles have been coined. So second one, a classification of export marketing problems of small and medium-sized manufacturing firms in developing countries. A review of entrepreneurship research published in hospitality and tourism management journals. So, for example, number 3 says it's looking at entrepreneurship, but it is telling us that the search was only limited to tourism management journals. That is also one thing that can happen. You may want to look for literature within specific journals, and it would all depend on if you are doing a publication in a journal. They may want to say focus on a particular journal. It depends on what the call for papers is asking you to do. And so typically number 3 is focusing on just tourism management journals. Number 4, entrepreneurship and dynamic capability, a review, model and research agenda. Okay. National culture and entrepreneurship, a review of behavioral research. Yes, Norbert, yes, that's what happened. So these were arrived at after the review. Sometimes you also would have the titles in mind before you even go into the review. But after the review, you may decide that based on the things or the themes or classifications that you are identifying from the review, you'd want to modify your titles. And please, very important, you don't go into a review, don't do search for papers in a review with a title. You do search for reviews with keywords or themes or topics that you have in mind. So for example, you can't go and search number 5 in the database and say, I am looking for papers that have been published on national culture and entrepreneurship, a review of behavioral research. You are most likely not to get any papers. So please let's note that. So the other ones in the area of accounting, for example, number 3, accounting and taxation in Europe. So this particular review is focused on Europe. Number 5, the use of disclosure indices in accounting research, a review article. This is marketing. So place branding, a review of trends and conceptual approaches. Number 2 is looking at methodological issues in cross-cultural marketing research, a state-of-the-art review, and so on and so forth. For example, number 6 says the determinants of export performance, a review of empirical literature between 1987 and 1997. So I think someone was asking Norbert was asking whether you go into the research with a title. So number 6 is a typical example. So the person may have gone to look for papers that are on export performance, right? But after the review, after the extraction of the papers and the review, he realized that the papers that were coming out were only within that period, from the 1987 to 1997. It's also possible that the person went in to just look for a decade-long research. So when he was doing his search, he set the parameters to give me papers that are restricted to 1987 to 1997. Okay. So it depends on how you want to look at it. For example, number 3 is saying that the focus was between 1980 and 1998. This is in the area of finance. So tax and corporate finance, a review. Number 4, behavioral finance, a review and synthesis. Number 5, efficient capital markets, a review of theory and empirical work. Public administration. Number 3, for example, says public administration research and assessment of journal publications. Number 6, public-private partnerships and international performance review. This is in the area of OMIS, which is information systems. Number 1 says information technology and productivity, a review of literature. Number 2, revisiting IS business value chain, what we already know, what we still need to know, and what we can get there. So these are examples of reviews that can be done or have been done before. There's also the cross-disciplinary reviews, where it cuts across one or more disciplines. So, for example, the concept of information overload, a review of literature from organization science, accounting, management, MIS, and related disciplines. A partial review of entrepreneurship literature across disciplines. A cross-disciplinary review of concepts of accountability. This is just to tell us that it is possible to not focus on one discipline, but to do reviews that cut across discipline. These are some of the reviews that Prof. Richard Boateng himself has done. And one is in the area of cloud computing, others are on smartphone addiction, others are on digital entrepreneurship, others are on user resistance, which is an example. Like I mentioned earlier, there's a bibliometric review that can also be done, which is more quantitative. And others are on branding and SMEs, e-commerce in least developing countries, e-commerce in developing countries. So if you want to do a review, undertaking such a review would require the review of literature, which entails the gathering of literature, like I indicated at the beginning of the session. You need to do an assimilation of the literature, an analysis of extant literature from diverse sources, largely academically oriented. Please let me lay emphasis on that again. Academically oriented. In some cases where you don't have a lot of journal articles or conference papers in the area, you may want to fall on reports. And you don't just fall on any report, but you want to fall on reports that are recognized globally. So you want to fall on UN reports, some known in the area of Africa, reports that are recognized within the African space, maybe some European reports. But the point is that these reports should be credible. And so it is not just any report that anyone has put online. The sources of these reports and even the journals or the articles that you are extracting from these databases should be from credible sources. So concept-centric, meaning that you need to have a concept in mind. And that is what is going to frame your review. And that is why in some of the titles that we saw, we would say that it is focusing on methodology, or it is looking at frameworks. Some will say it is looking at concepts. Others would say it is looking at what existing, current, and what can be done in the future. So you need to have all these concepts in mind before you even go to perform your review. And cover relevant literature in the area. That is also important. Not confining itself to one set of journals or one geographic region. Here is what we call the building blocks of a review, a systematic review. Usually in a systematic review, you want to cover the research issues that have been done in the area. You want to look at the theory and conceptual approaches that have been adopted by existing by authors in the area. You want to look at the research methods, some we call the research methodologies that have been used by authors in the area. The level of analysis, there are basically 4 levels. So the micro, which is more individual, looking at the individual perceptions. There is the meso, which is more organizational. There is the macro, which is at the national level. And then there's the meta, which cuts across regions. So does it look at Ghana, Nigeria? Does it look at Ghana, Gambia? Does it look at Gambia, Nigeria? That sort of thing. And so those are the various levels that is what we consider under the level of analysis. So for example, if you were looking at a meta level, if you read a paper and the paper says that the data was collected from Nigeria and Ghana, then that should give you a sense that there was a comparative study of these two countries. Even though the responses, obviously, if you are collecting data or empirical data, the responses will certainly come from individuals who are going to give you the responses. But at what level was the analysis done? We were comparing it at the country, the level at the country levels. I'm saying the country levels because there is also the macro level, which would look at one country. And then the geographic region is whether it was done in Ghana, was done in Nigeria, USA, France, Greece, those sort of things. And then the industry. You see, the research that most scholars would do would focus on a particular industry, and that is what brings about the differences in the publication. Someone would want to publish something on fintech, but he is looking at fintechs within the context of SMEs. Others would want to look at fintechs for women entrepreneurs. Others would want to look at fintechs generally without focusing on whether it is for MSMEs or for women. So the industry is basically where the publication was focused on. Was it in healthcare? Was it in finance? Was it in agriculture? That is where we put the industry or okay. So money is micro, macro, macro, meso is micro, meso, macro, meta. Let me it's a second. Let me just type. So let's proceed. The other aspect of artifacts has to do with what sort of was there an examination of any particular artifact? Was it about mobile phones? Was it about any forms of technologies that have been developed and have been released into the market for people to give their thoughts about? Was it the development of any infrastructure? Which stakeholders were involved in the research that the authors have done in the area? The time is basically the time frame. Are you limiting yourself to have which periods have these authors published the papers? Have there been more papers over the past 3 years, or it has been over the past 5 years, or it has been over the past 10 years? And especially for the time, you notice that there are situations where when you do the extraction and you do the analysis, you may realize that maybe from the year 2000 to 2010, there were a lot of papers. But when it got to after the year 2010, there was a decline in the publication of papers. And then maybe getting to 2015, 2016, there were more papers in the area. So those are some of the things that you may be noticing from the reviews that we do. And all these are based on literature that you extract from the area. The journal has to do with which journals have published the papers. Okay. There is a difference between the database and the journal. For example, Scopus is an example of a database, but within Scopus, different journals have been indexed in Scopus. There is also the Web of Science. Web of Science is similar to Scopus. So it also has different journals that have been indexed in Web of Science. And there are also discipline-specific journals or databases. Those in the health sciences would tell you there's something called Medline and all that. So depending on the topic that you are doing the review on, you may want to focus on a particular database because you think that is where you can get papers related to the review that you want to do. And then very important is the research gaps, because that is where your meat is. If you have no gaps to address, then your PhD is going to be flawed. So let's take note of that, the research gaps. And usually the research gaps, you would get it based on these building blocks. You will notice that the guys who are published in the area are talking more on the individual issues. They are not looking at micro level issues or macro level issues or meta level issues. So you may want to delve into that in your PhD and look at that. You may also realize that the theories that have been used, they are maybe not looking at the multi-stakeholder perspective. So they tend to adopt just one-sided theories without looking at other theories. Their methods, you may realize that they are researching more on qualitative and leaving quantitative behind, or they are doing more quantitative and leaving qualitative. And also the third one, which is the mixed methods, the mixed methods research in the area are not significant. So you may want to look into that, sort of let your PhD focus in that area. Level of analysis is same. The publications in the area may have done more of micro than macro or more of meta than meso.
Yeah,
so that also needs to be noted. The geographic regions, you may notice that there has been a lot of publications in Europe, even though there is the phenomenon. Yes, please go ahead.
No, sorry, I didn't get the level of analysis clearly. If you can please go over it.
So what I'm saying with regards to the level of analysis is that you may notice that people are doing more micro level studies. So they are looking at individual perceptions. They are not looking at organizational level issues. They are not looking at country level issues. They are not looking at cross-country level issues. So then you would want to have your PhD looking at these issues, because this is one of the gaps that your review will be telling you is left for others to look into. And please, are you okay with that?
Yes, very helpful.
All right. So I think I've mentioned the geographical issues, the industry level issues. Maybe in the area there has been more of finance related issues. There are less of healthcare. There is more of entrepreneurship. There is less of agriculture. There is more of agriculture. There is less of education. So then that would inform you to decide on which sort of area to sort of gap to fill. And the geographical region is what you usually would have as a context gap, because within the African context, maybe there are less papers. There are more papers in Europe than in Africa. So you may want to fill in that gap that is left, even though you've observed that this phenomenon is just not, it's not just a European phenomenon, but also happening within the African context. You may also notice that within the time, all the publications have ended maybe in the year 2015. What happened to publications that have been done from 2015 up to 2020? The journals can also inform you on where to even take your paper when you are done publishing. And also, what the journals can also help you do is that it can point you to delve deeper into these journals, because you may notice that there are more papers published in a particular journal. So it would be of interest to go and dig deeper into this particular journal to know what the authors are saying, and even the reasons why these authors are publishing in this particular journal. It may be that it's one of the leading journals in your discipline. That is why people are publishing in it. Or the focus of the journal is tailored towards a particular research area, and that is why people are publishing their research in it. And then obviously the research gaps, because there are two types of research gaps that you can. Okay, so let me leave it two types of research gaps that you can get from your review. Let me leave it that way. So two types of research gaps that you can get from your review. One is what these building blocks are telling you. And the other sort of research gaps that you get is what the authors who have done their publications in the area are also pointing you to. So you may read 2 or 3 articles that are telling you that we haven't had a lot of papers in Africa or developing countries, so go and look at it. Another 2 or 3 authors or one author would also point you. There has been less research done at the micro level, so you can look at it. Another author will tell you that in terms of conceptual approaches or theories, there have been less theories used in less of this particular theory that has been used, so you can also look at it. The authors may also tell you that in terms of the methodologies, there have been less of qualitative or quantitative, so you can look at it. So those are the two types of gaps. And so I would suggest that when you are doing your reviews, you come up with these two. What your review is telling you to do, and then also identify the gaps based on what the authors have said in their own papers that you are reviewing. That will be very helpful to you so that you can know the two. And that would help you to build a very strong research gap when you are developing your own PhD or your own, if it's a journal article that you want to publish, that can also inform you to do that. So please go ahead. Yes, I'm not. I wouldn't say specifically there would be the need for that. The point I'm making is that it is possible that in looking at the directions for future research in the papers that you review, the author may say that look at these particular issues because they have not been they have been given less of attention. I don't know whether you are with me. So the paper would probably say that maybe he's published a paper on SMEs in developing countries, but the author in his future research directions would then say, even though I have written a paper generally in SMEs in developing countries or in Ghana, there have been less of attention that has been given to women-led SMEs or female-led SMEs. So that is a gap for you to sort of look at. Okay, so that is the dynamics that you can have in the area. Ms. Norbert, can you please repeat the question? Okay, so So, Norbert, what Moro was asking about is that usually when you are going into a review, there are issues that you are going to identify from your review. You have a section or a category where you talk of research issues, right? And he was asking whether that is not enough to have as to inform you to address gaps in the area, because you would have noticed that the issues that are coming up are maybe talking about gender issues, or they are looking at just in the area of education or just agriculture, right? But I'm explaining to him that even though your review would identify these things, it is also possible that the papers that you are also reviewing are pointing you to some specific gaps to also look at. Because if you decide not to listen to what the authors are saying, you may have a situation where you are leaving out some gaps that need to be addressed based on what some authors have recommended. And usually, if you are building a strong research problem, you need to have literature that is backing your research problem. And so you want to fall on what other authors are suggesting on the topic that you have researched on, or on the topic that you have done your review on, which would inform you to address the gaps in the area. Yeah. So usually in the review, you would have an introduction, and very important aspect of a review. Why you need an introduction is that you want to, and I understand why the topic is even relevant. What sort of themes are you looking at? Are there any existing reviews in the area? You want to touch on all these things. What will happen if this is not done? If this is an established team, then you need to get some gas to call for another review. So some people would advise that it may be the same topic, but over the past 5 years, has anybody done something in the area? If there is nobody who has done something in the area, we then would jump in and look for papers within the past 5 years, do a literature review on them, and publish it. That is a gap that you may also be filling, because I realize that nobody has done anything in the area. It's possible that in the past 10 years, has there been any review done in the area? You may realize that no, it hasn't been done. So you want to fill in that gap by doing a review on that. So conducting a review, you want to define the concepts, give a description of the concept, and do a classification. The classification that you usually would do most of the time, some may call it the building blocks. So you want to touch on what the issues are, the theories are, the methods are, the level of analysis, the geographic region, the time, and all that. Yeah. So the methodology would usually touch on the scope, what sort of papers are you focusing on? Are you looking at conference papers, or you're looking at journals, articles, you're looking at reports? Key contributors and assistants. So are you going to rely on, for example, if you choose your keywords, you may not be a strong expert in the area. So you may want to share your keywords with someone who's an expert in the area to advise you whether your keywords are exhaustive. Right? And then you do a selection of the databases that you want to research on, the keywords you want to use, screening, which is on the we call it the inclusion and exclusion criteria. And then you arrive at the final number of articles that you want to use for your study. So let me pick your questions. What if it gives you several different gaps? What do you do? Do we take the dominant gaps and in the late? Yes. So it may not be dominant, but it is also whether it is of interest. It is not just whether there are many people saying it, but whether that gap is really of interest to you, or whether when you pursue that gap, it is strong enough for your PhD. So let's note that. Let me also indicate, very important, is that sometimes the gaps that you identify may be coming from specific journals. And those journals may be the very top journals in the area, in your discipline. Okay. So, for example, if in the area of information systems, there's something we call the eight senior scholars baskets. And so if you do a review and you have gaps coming from these top 8, then like the accounts will say, we deload it, because nobody can shoot down your gaps. These are gaps that the top guys in your area are seeing you should look at. Provided the phenomenon that you want to study, you can get data on to do your PhD and all that. So you need to try and apply all these things and not just pick gaps in anyhow. But at the point of doing the review, my advice is that you need to try and extract all these things, because the moment you have the data with you, then you can decide to either drop what you want to drop and use what you want to use. You cannot finish the review and then you realize that, oh, I left this thing out, I should have done it. You have to go through the entire process of doing the review all over again. So extract as much data as you want. We'll look at how to do the extraction. So extract as much data as you want, and then decide what you want to use and what you don't want to use. Sumani Abdul, so you're asking how many gaps you should be identified for a PhD. So Sumani, Prof will touch on the types of research gaps, but usually there are some may say 3, some may say 4 research gaps. There's what we call the issue gap. And that is why identify the issues in your area in the review is important. There's what we call the context gap. There's what we call the theoretical gap, which is usually the foundation of your research, because you want to contribute to knowledge. There are also others who would say maybe usually the theory and the knowledge is, some people consider them as together. So you are contributing to knowledge through the theory that you are going to extend. And then there's also the method gap. So there's a context, issue, knowledge, theory, and then the method gap. And you see, all these things would be informed by the literature review that you do. If you don't do the literature review, you cannot know which ones are context-based for you, which ones are method-based for you, which ones are theory-based for you, or which ones are even the issues for you to even look at. Benjamin, let's go back to the selecting or choosing the topic. How do we coin the PhD thesis topic so that no, Benjamin, my focus here is not to coin a topic. Prof will take you through how to select a PhD topic for yourself. Please, that will be in another lecture. I am just here to sort of walk you through how to do a review. So this would be a class for you that Prof would have with you. Please, any questions before we go ahead? Any more questions? Okay, so before we go, I just would want to know, anyone has any thoughts of doing a review in mind? I'm sure some of you may have thought of doing some systematic reviews for yourself, either for publication or towards your own PhD. Is someone speaking? Please, if you haven't thought of it, you need to start thinking about it, because it is going to be one of your, if it is not your exam, it will be one of the major assignments for this class. So you need to start thinking about it. You cannot finish this class without doing a systematic review. So please start thinking about it. Is this one is just free Apple? Don't go and tell Prof that me I told you. So please start looking at it. Yes, Moro, please go ahead. Okay. Okay, all right, and that's fine. Please, the other disciplines, if you haven't started, please do. Actually, I'm not saying start, but start thinking about what sort of reviews you do, the topic to even do, what things you are going to look at. You start thinking about them.
Yes, Obed.
Yes, please go ahead.
So can we decide to say the topic that I want to write my thesis on, I can give it a try for the test? For the yes.
Yes. When we are doing the search, you can bring it up so that we can use the search parameters in your topic to extract papers. Yes. We are going to do a demonstration about an hour demonstration. So
okay, thank you.
The session is a tutorial, so it's just to walk you through how to practically do this stuff. Is any more questions? Was someone speaking? Okay, so let's continue. So in the review, you need to present your findings. So you distribute the articles based on the building blocks, which years have the articles been published, what sort of journals are publishing in, what sort of industries or stakeholders have the publications been on, what sort of sub-teams have the authors published on. So this is a journal, this is a paper that Prof. Boateng published. It was on financial technologies. And so on the first column, you notice the journals that did the publications. In the middle, after that column is the number of articles. And then the third column is telling us whether the journals are focused on developing countries or which jurisdictions these journals usually would fall under. And then the number of articles that have been published under that. Okay. So the left one is e-commerce, top e-commerce journals, the number of articles, and then the third column is IS journals that are focused on IT and developing countries or developed. This is a graph that shows the trend in terms of publication. So, for example, the publications were done from 1993 to 2006. And so it shows us a trend. You notice that from 1993 up till 1996, it was relatively low, and then it went up to 1997. You may want to find out why a jump in 1997. Was it because there was a phenomenon that was happening globally in the area, and that is why it drew the attention of researchers to publish more in the area? And then it then dropped to 1998, and then went up again steadily to 2002. So you also would want to find out why is it that from 1998 up to 2002 there was a steady rise in the number of publications. There could be something that was happening globally on the phenomenon, and that is why researchers sort of put their attention towards that area. And then after 2002 it dropped. Then 2003, then in 2004 it went up again, dropped in 2005, and then went up again in 2006. So in your write-up, you have to describe this gap and sort of explain why you think that trend is happening. One of the common trends that we may observe is the 2008 recession that happened. I think it was the Obama time or something. Usually the papers that are published, usually in 2008, then people would want to sort of do a discussion on what is happening, especially the finance area. So you notice that there are a lot of people who are talking about the economic recession in 2008. And so you see that there will be, if you are using a R to plot, you see that it's cluttered in a particular that particular year. So this looks at the teams. So in terms of infrastructure, is it looking at infrastructure in terms of applications, or is it looking at hardware infrastructure, or looking at infrastructure in general? And then even in the applications, what sort of sub applications are used? Is it organizational systems, financial services, retailing, electronic payment systems, electronic services, auctions, education and training, and general applications? And then all that, you are then taking notes of the numbers and then the percentages. So this is a research focus. Is it looking at potential and constraints, or it is looking at adoption and diffusion? So in terms of potential and constraint, the sub-teams are whether it is providing opportunities, it is doing an assessment, or it is talking about development. In terms of adoption and diffusion, whether it is talking about technology, managerial, organizational, cultural, environmental, readiness, or interaction. So this is just a map on the teams, the sort of teams. So team 1, you can have team 1, team 2, team 3, team 4, depending on what you are identifying from the review or from the papers that you are reading. So this is sort of a matrix that talks about the level of analysis, and then up there we have needs, design, application, adoption, and then impact. So for each of them, it is saying that also, for example, where we have the 8, 9, the papers have been numbered. So paper number 8, number 9, number 15, number 28, number 43 are talking about their micro level studies that are talking about design and application. Okay. And then there is also the 13, 12, 26 also talking about design, same design and application, but it also eats into the meso level studies. And then studies on adoption and adaptation more have been done at the macro level, and then it's paper number 24 is what is in most of the discussions in the area. So 25, 27, 35, and then 40. I think I would look for this paper and share it with you on the WhatsApp page. So conceptual approaches, methodological approaches, bibliographical distribution. These are coming from the building blocks that we saw earlier in the slides. This is based on methodology, so mixed methods, quantitative, mixed methods, qualitative, descriptive. Okay. The approaches that were used, whether they were socio-technical, whether they were technical, the theories that were used. So it's just providing us with a matrix on based on the assimilation of the contents from the paper. Okay, so the review that you want to do also seek to sort of understand whether the theories and concepts that have been used, so whether it's theoretical approaches, whether it is framework-based approaches, model-based approaches, concepts, and then category-based approaches. These are sessions that you would look at more into detail. So applying theories in research and all that, they're actually sessions that Prof would have to explain all this, what we mean by theory, what we mean by framework, model, concepts. Okay, so that is it for the slides. Please, any questions before we look at the questions before we start the data? Okay, so if there is no question, then all right, thank you. So if there is no question, then let's look at how to extract literature then. So please, can you see my screen? Okay, so Norbert, when we are doing the extraction, we would look at your topic. I think we can just do about 2 or 3. We have just 1 hour, so please, can you see my web page? Can you see my web page, please?
I cannot see. Prof, I'm
seeing.
Okay. The presentation too.
Okay, a second. Can you see now?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So so this is what you do first, please. This is what you do first. If you have a please a second. Is the web page showing?
Yes.
Okay. So if you have a topic in mind, so I think Caroline mentioned hers first. So let's take hers first. Caroline, please go ahead. Let's use yours. Caroline, are you there, please? Is it my network or it's hers? Hello?
Hello?
I hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So I think it's from Caroline's end. So okay. If we are not hearing from Caroline, let me use Norbert. So Norbert is asking, I want to do something on sustainable marketing, but have no clear title yet. Any suggestions? So Norbert, I don't know. Yours obviously it's on marketing. So you may want to first start off with from Google Scholar. I'm not saying go and rely on Google, but start with Google Scholar. So you do sustainable marketing, literature review. Okay, so this is what you do first. So because Google Scholar should be your first point of call. So you come here and then you do sustainable marketing literature review. And then it gives you a sense of what sort of the reviews have been done in the area. So you notice that this one was in 2012, which is a pretty long time. That's almost like 10 years now. This one is talking about augmented reality, a sustainable marketing tool. Even though it's a sustainable marketing, it's focused on augmented reality. That is even a book, and it is way back 2010. This one is talking about biofuel in India. It's talking about sustainable marketing. It is focusing on biofuels. And that was done in 2018. Proposing a sustainable marketing framework for heritage tourism. So this one is talking about sustainable marketing, but it was done in the area of tourism. And it was even done as far back as 2009. So human relationships to nature, framing sustainable marketing. So it's talking about human relations in the area of sustainable marketing as far as 2017. That's good. Doing good, that's good. Sustainable markets. This is focused on corporate social responsibility. So you notice that there are reviews on sustainable marketing, but they have either been focused on a particular area or industry. So this one is talking about in the area of fashion marketing or brand loyalty. So it depends on what you want to look at. Please, let me not forget this. When you are doing a review, it is not good that you would include a review in your review. So usually your focus should be on empirical papers. So papers that sort of with some data collection. But aside that, the bottom line is that don't do a review of a review. So if you found in your search that there are about 10 systematic reviews that have been done, it will be useful for you to just take them out. Okay, and then focus on those ones that are either empirical or for your review. And then you may want to go and look into those 10 systematic reviews to see if they also pointed any gaps that can inform your own research. So please note that. Other authors will dispute what I'm saying. They will say that you report on the reviews that you have done. But from the training that I got, it is not advisable because these are reviews that have already been done in the area. Why do you go and do another review on another review? So I've heard others who have also contested that and said, no, there's no point. It is fine to include your reviews in the review that you do. So, Norbert, this is the first step, and to all of us, please, this is the first step. If you have a topic in mind or you want to do any review, go to Google Scholar, go and search for the topic. You notice that I did not search for I did not search for a title. I searched for a topic, and that topic is sustainable marketing. If Norbert had another, some we want to call it dependent and independent variable. If he had another thought in mind, so for example, maybe ethics. Okay, so you notice that it is bringing out sustainable marketing research, past, present, and future. Sustainable marketing strategy, analysis of recent literature, state of green marketing. See, so it depends on what your focus is. For example, this sustainable marketing past, present, and future. The date is as 2014, but the point is after 2014, have there been any reviews done on this topic since 2014? 2014 and now is a long time, so you may want to look into it. So please, this is your first point of let's open this and see what happens in this paper. I am told that my internet is not stable. Okay, so when we open the paper up, please, I believe this thing is running. Okay. Please, can you see the paper?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So
yes.
That's it. So let's just read the abstract. So this paper provides a synthesis of critical assessment of the sustainable marketing literature from a period of 1998 to 2013. So even though this paper was published in 2014, whoever did the review ended in 2013, building on previous assessment of 1971 to 1998. See, so it means that he also did a search like we are doing now and realized that what the papers that were done up to 1998. So he continued from 1998 and ended in 2013. He details research within major marketing journals and critically assesses this research in relation to the ongoing conversation which focuses on marketing's relationship with the natural environment. Differences in the content and depth of sustainability coverage in the marketing journals are considered. Potential avenues for future sustainability marketing research are proposed. With a particular call for theoretical, you see, this is a gap that the person is proposing by way of research. So it says, potential avenues for future sustainability marketing research are proposed with a particular call for theoretical and managerial reflections which tackle broader systematic and institutional. So please, who can tell me what sort of gap this is? Anyone with an idea?
Meso.
Meso, yes. So meso meaning that it is more of an organizational gap, right? So that's right, meso. So institutional issues. So it is pointing us that there is a need for more institutional studies in the discipline. So, I mean, basically that is what the paper is doing. There's usually a table. We'll look at a table like that. Yeah, so that is it for the paper. We are running out of time, so let me just delve into the okay, so this is the University of Ghana website. We are going to look for going to a database to go and search for papers. So we go to the University of Ghana website. I am on the university network. So usually when you are at the university website, you go to the library, you go to BAM library. Yeah. So when we are at the BAM library on the university network, you go to databases, quick A to Z, database quick A to Z. So you click on that from here. More, please go ahead. Okay, so one of the gaps, the point is, you see, you want to do a literature review and not first point is to do a literature review before you even want go and conduct your empirical study for your PhD. So the focus is on the literature review. So the point is that this literature review that I want to do, has anyone done anything in the area before? Because the gaps that you would notice in the review may not point you to another literature review. Not necessarily. Some may say that look into the literature review from this particular angle. That is fine. You may identify that. But based on what you may also find from the Google Scholar, the first level search that you do, you even notice that whoever did the publication, you want to do the same review on the same topic. But whoever did the publication did not look at issues regarding methodologies. He did not look at issues regarding theories. He probably only focused on papers, the gaps that others have also already pointed to, and did an analysis on those gaps. So it depends on what you are finding. So that's why the building blocks is also important. You notice that, okay, I want to do the same thing. The guy did not talk about methodology. He didn't talk about theories. So it will be useful for me to collect papers in the area and fill that gap in the review that he did not talk about. Yeah. sorry, University of Ghana Research Studies. Please, can you see the page? Database is this quick A to Z. Okay. So for my discipline, where I usually go, I think even for all disciplines, most disciplines, let me put it that way, where you usually would go would be to go to Scopus. Scopus is one of the top well-recognized databases for academic research. Okay, so when you click on Scopus, you have here, you are going to search for articles on the right-hand side, the search document. But on the left hand here, it is telling you which sections you are searching for. So you're searching for article title, abstract, keywords. Okay. Then, so please, let's start. Anybody with a topic? I think Caroline, if you can hear us, you may want to go ahead and tell us what your topic is so we can do the search. Please, you don't search a title here. You only will search keywords, and those keywords will come from the topic that you have in mind. So, for example, in Norbert's case, he says sustainable. My internet. So sustainable marketing. Please, let's take note of this. The parameters for searching. If you have two words separately, it's a concept. Sustainable marketing is a concept. So you would use the quotation marks to sort of put them together so that when the system is searching, it will say that look through the database and pull all words that are related to sustainable marketing for me. If you decide to leave it like this without the quotation marks, it would go and pull sustainable different and pull marketing different for you. Meanwhile, the papers may not be talking about that concept of sustainable market. So please note, so you use the quotation marks to group the terms together or the concepts together. And then maybe, let's say, ethics. And I don't know whether sustainable marketing and ethics is actually something in the discipline of marketing, but let's just say. So what the system is going to see here is that look for sustainable marketing, papers that have discussed sustainable marketing and ethics for me. Okay. And then what we are saying is that search for articles in the title, abstract, and keyword sections of that. Usually this would be the default search that you do. If you decide to open up from here, you can do that. So whether you are searching for all fields, if you leave it to all fields, you have so many papers. It means even if the keyword is in the body of the write-up, we'll extract it. But here, we want to narrow our search down as much as possible. So we are leaving it to abstract, title, abstract, and keywords. So then we click on search from the button on the right-hand side, and then we'll do the search first. You need a database, Senior. You need a database. Yes, you have to select a specific database, and that is why you have to know all the key data, the key databases in your discipline, as well as the key journals in your discipline. So you need the database is like a container that you are going to pick the literature from. Okay, so you need a database to do that. So our search on sustainable marketing and ethics has brought us 11 documents. But these 11 documents, there is a breakdown here. It is telling us that some were published, 5 in 2021, 2019, 2017, 2010, 2009. So in the example that we saw, we realized that they ended in 2013. So it means that your focus, you may want to look at publications that have been done in 2017, 19, and then 20. So that is 5, 6, 7 papers published in the area. Okay. And then you would want to, depending on your discipline, you want to take out whether you want to focus on just business and management papers, or you want to focus on social sciences, energy. But this will be helpful because you can tell the industry in which the papers were published. So you notice that the search that we did from Google Scholar, we were seeing papers from biofuels, which is energy. We're seeing papers from environment, right? Corporate social responsibility was on, I think, an environmental. So once you leave this, at least when you are reading the paper, you can get this as one of your classifications. And then the document type, usually for a review, you would focus on articles and then conference papers. And then the publication stage, final publications. You don't want papers that are in press. If you look for papers that are in press, you may not get the paper to read.
Okay. Yeah, are you okay?
Okay. So the source title, no, you don't need to filter that. The language, please, language, very important. So if you go and choose Italian, you can't read Italian, so you cannot review that paper. So you only want to focus on English papers. So we have selected this. Please, this one is just an example I'm giving you. So let's note. So you click on limit to beneath here. So after putting our search parameters, we are left with 4 papers. And these 4 papers that are left, that one, you have to go and read them because it is possible that they are saying that they publish on sustainable marketing and ethics. But when you read them, you do the reading, it doesn't really suit sustainable marketing and ethics. So you want to drop them. Okay. So let me now show you how to extract this. Please, any more questions? Any questions before I continue? Because I'm going to show you extraction. Once we look at extraction, then we will look at how to develop a table on the inclusion and exclusion criteria and how to and a flow chart on how to include and exclude papers. Please, any questions? Okay, so if there are no questions, let's continue. So let's say we have these 4 papers. How do we extract them? So we click on all here. And then we click on export. And then we click on the CSV format. Usually you would want to leave it to just the citation information here. And then you click on export here. So it will download a CSV version, a CSV export that you have asked the system to do for you. So please, let me take us back, please. Let me take us just before we do this. So we had So we said we were searching for sustainable marketing and ethics. We had sorry, I think I lost the connection, right? Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes, we can. It was just for 1 minute.
Oh, okay. Okay, so let me share my screen again. So what I'm saying is that we said we were looking for sustainable marketing and ethics. So we have placed in our keywords here. Then we do a search. Please, at this stage, you start to document the process. So you have what your keywords are. You have sustainable marketing. Is those in the marketing discipline? Are there any words we can use or sustainable marketing? That still means sustainable marketing. Any other concepts?
Green marketing.
Green marketing, okay. Is any more? Any more concepts? Okay, so if there are no concepts, so it means that sustainable marketing, here we are saying that all green marketing, and then ethics. So the system would say that pick sustainable marketing, or if there is also something called green marketing, and then add it to a paper that also has ethics in it. So we do our search. So at this stage, we know what our keywords are: sustainable marketing or green marketing and ethics. So we have that, and then we do a search. See that the number of papers have increased because we brought in the green marketing. If we had limited ourselves to just sustainable market, we would have lost out on the remaining papers that have come to add on to this. And that is why earlier on I mentioned that it is important that you consult experts in the area. I am not a marketing expert, so I had to consult the marketing experts, who then told me that apart from sustainable marketing, there's something called green marketing, which also means the same. So I then had to add it for us to increase the number of papers we have. So we have that. So our initial search is 43. You document that. Your initial search is 43. And then now you come and set your inclusion and exclusion criteria. So we are saying that here is where we increase. The view more tells us the additional, it brings up the additional years for us. So we are looking at, the last one was in 2014. So let's start from 2014, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. So our time limit would be what, please, if you are following? What would be our time limit? Please, can you hear me? What would be our time limit? So it means you're not following.
2014.
2014.
So that is not enough to address the time limit.
You said 14, 15, 16, 17? I didn't hear the last one.
But can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so because I've sort of
much better now.
14 to 21.
Yes, so the time limit is 14 to 21. That is the time limit we are setting for ourselves. So it means that we are looking for papers between 2014 and 2021. That's our time limit. Please, all these things will go into our methodology, because your methodology needs to be very scientific, so that when any other person decides to sort of go through the process, they can follow and arrive at your answer, even if they don't get the same number of papers, because as the day breaks, people publish. The only change they may get is the number of papers going up, which is as a result of people publishing to add to the numbers that you already have. So it is important you go through this process, because you want to make your methodology very, very, very scientific. One of the reasons why papers get rejected for publication, especially for systematic reviews, has to do with the methodology. So please let's note that. So we have 2014, 2021 as a time limit. And then we are saying the document type. Please, what document type are we selecting? Sorry, I'm back. I lost the connection. Can you see my screen? Can you see my screen? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you now.
So please a second. Okay, so we set our time limit to our time frame to 2014 to 2021, and we are saying that the document type we are looking for would be just articles, because in here we don't have any conference paper, so we limit ourselves to articles only. And then we are looking for papers that have been published at the final stages, so we don't want any articles in press, because we have to read the papers fully to understand what is in them. We don't care about the keywords, funding, sponsor, country. No, we don't care the source type. We don't care about that, because we've already set articles here. And then we want to limit ourselves to English, because we don't speak Portuguese, we don't speak Italian. If you add these two, you cannot read them. In systematic reviews, you are supposed to read the papers. So we will say that these are the parameters we have for ourselves. So we have our time frame from 2014 to 2021, our document type articles. We have our language would be English. Okay. Then we click on limits. So based on from the 43 papers, we've dropped down to how many papers? 14 papers. Please, are you with me?
Yes, we are.
Okay, so we dropped down to 14 papers. So based on these 14 papers, then we can go ahead and say that let's extract these 14 papers. So we click on all from here. Click on CSV exports. CSV here. Select the citation column, select all for us, then we click on export. So the CSV file will be here for us to open up. Okay, so we have our CSV opened up. Right. So we are interested in the authors. Please stay with me here. This section is very critical to the review process. So sorry, please, is the Excel sheet showing?
No, sir.
Okay.
No.
No. Okay.
I think it should be showing now, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So please stay with me. So we have the authors. We are interested in the authors. We are not interested in the author ID, so we drop it. We are interested in the title of the paper here. We're interested in the year. Okay. We are interested in the source title. The source title is the journal in which the paper was published. So we leave that one as well. We are not interested in the volume. We are not interested in the issue. We are not interested in the arts number. We are not interested in the page numbers. We are not interested in the where it ends. We are not interested in page counts. We are not interested in the citation, because we are not really doing a bibliometric review. If we were doing a bibliometric review, then we want to know how many papers, how many other authors have cited that particular paper. But we are not interested in that. You may want to keep the DOI to search for the papers, but I usually would leave the DOI, because I can go and use Google Scholar to get the papers. So I would delete that. I'm not interested in the links. We are interested in the document type because sometimes you may not only have articles, you may have conference papers in addition. So from face value, you know that I have maybe 10 articles, 3 conference papers, or I have 3 conference papers, 10 articles. And then it is telling us that all of them are in final publication. We already set that in our Scopus database, so we give that as well. So we delete that.
Yeah.
In end, we delete that.
Yeah, no, you can come.
Sources, we delete that. EID, we delete that. And then we delete this as well.
This chance. Okay.
So we are left with how many papers? 14 papers here. Please, are you with me?
Yes, we are waiting.
Okay, so
Yes,
out of these 14,
yes,
out of these 14 papers, you then will pick the titles, the paper one after the other, because you are supposed to read the papers fully. And that is why if you don't have any full paper, you don't include it in your search. So pick the first one, go and look for the paper, and then let me switch to another screen so that I show you how the breakdown looks like. So I'll stop this and go to share. Please, can you see this screen?
Yes.
Okay, so this one is on big data analytics. Okay, so this is the initial cleanup we did from the titles of title document type. You notice that here there are some articles and conference papers here, from here. So from here, we are able to sort of filter and say that we need just how many articles do we need. So it is telling us that 2, 3, 4, 5. The thing is a lot. So maybe have about more than 90. So let's say maybe we have so let's say we have articles about 90, and then we have maybe conference papers maybe 34. So we document this. But let me say that, see, here what you do is, before you can even decide to go through this stage, you should have read the papers to be sure that, why is this thing? Yes, no, but you have to go through this process. A systematic review, you can't afford to miss any of the steps. You have to go through each and every one of them, one after the other. Read the papers. Okay. So someone is asking, say it's based on what? Database, not the journal. Which one? You want to explain that, your question or your suggestion, so that we don't get confused?
No, I think he was asking whether you are supposed to go through all this process for each journal. I'm saying that is what you are doing right now is based on the database you used. So which means that if you go to another database, you go through this same process.
Yes, that's right. Yes.
I'm like,
yeah. Thank you, Richmond. So we pick the paper, and then, sorry, let me just show you the breakdown we have. So we have it's telling us the year here. Please, you know that we have a section on teams. This one is on what? Sector, industry, or field. This one is level of analysis. This one is what? Methodology. Methodology 1, methodology 2. Methodology 1, methodology 2, because it may be saying that the thing is a qualitative study. If it is a qualitative study, what sort of qualitative study is it? That will come in methodology 2. It may be a qualitative study, but is it an ethnographic study? Is it a phenomenology, or it is a case study? That is what will come in your methodology 2. But usually you'd want to just leave it whether it's a qualitative, mixed methods, or quantitative. And then the country where it was published, and then the future research. Future research, I will want to leave it as future research 1, and then future research 2. Okay. So future research 1 is that what is the paper telling us to look at? So the first paper, if we pick this paper, what did the authors point us to? Okay. And then you may want to leave the future research 2 out for now. After you have written the paper and you have identified the themes and methods and theories that have been used, you then will come up with your own directions that you think are necessary based on the review that you have done. So let me just drop it so that it doesn't get us confused. So this future research is what, when we read this particular guy, a data-driven approach to reduce electricity theft in developing countries, is telling us to look into. Okay, so it's published in Utilities Policies. It is an article. It was published in 2021. Please, you see all these 90 papers we have. Not all of them will be related to the topic we want to do the review on. So as you read them, you strike out. So if you read this and it is related to your study, then you mark it as green. If you read 2, also related, mark it as green. You read number 3, it doesn't really fit the study, the review, or the topic you are studying, you mark it as red. You read number 4, it doesn't fit, you mark it as red. Mark it as red. Maybe this one fits, you mark it as green. So in the end, you can use the filtering feature in Excel to determine how many out of this 90 were fitting and how many didn't fit your study or your review. So let's say at the end of this particular process, we arrived at maybe 95 meeting the requirements, and then it's 90, so 85 meeting the requirements, and then 5 did not meet. Okay, so we have documented that. So we did an initial search. We had say 100, and then we sorted the time, the documentation, and everything, and then we had 90. We took 10 out, and then we did detailed reading. Some will say they read the abstract first before they do full reading. I usually would do full reading before I even do full reading, but it's advisable that you read the abstract from this level so that you can get a sense of what the paper wants to talk about for inclusion or exclusion. So some will say they did abstract reading and then they got 85 out of the 100 meeting the requirements. And then they did another full reading of the paper and then they got 80. So it means they took another 5 out. So in the end, they have just 80 papers as final papers for full reading. Okay. Some may do the full paper readings, but realize that they still need to further take out some papers because it still does not meet the requirements. Please let's note that. Yes, Richmond,
Hello,
you read? Yes, please go ahead.
Yes, Obed. You said, so a paper that we haven't read, we cannot cite it, right?
I haven't mentioned citation unless there are points where I said people citing it. No. No. This is not
okay. What is the point? What is the real point you made?
So no, I'm saying that for a systematic review, you have to read the papers fully. So read from from abstract to conclusion.
Okay.
Yes. If you don't read the paper fully, you cannot include it in your review.
Okay, I get it now.
Yes.
Thank you.
that is ethically what should be done, but some people will just read maybe the abstract, go and read the methodology or read the but I'm teaching, I'm going the ethical way so that you are safe.
Yeah,
so
I get
yes.
So
but based on your experience, you know where to find what.
Where to read, exactly.
Where to find what, yes. So you can do that for those who have that experience and know where to. But let me yes.
So I want to ask, how about the cross-referencing approach? Is it also a suitable approach to use? So yes, for instance, if I pick the first one, a data-driven approach, and I go and read on it, then I look at the cross-referencing, probably maybe this author reference about 2 or 3 articles. Then I also go further to also make a step and go and read those other articles. Is that approach also an ideal approach to use?
Yes, it is. But you usually would do that after you have read, you have gone through this particular list. But those are just coming on the side for you. And you don't even notice that whilst some of these cross-referencing that you are saying, somebody within this list is that cross-reference that you are referring to. Yes. So it is best for you to go through this. But we see, as you read, you note those cross-references down so that when you are done, then you can go and say that I arrived at 80 as my final, but I added maybe 10 as cross-reference documents to it to make it 90.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Is any more questions? Okay, so if we don't have any questions, let's let me share another screen, and then we see the sorry. Okay, so let me just show you the exclusion and inclusion criteria, and then we can look at the Prisma model. Mo, please go ahead.
Hello, Bed.
Yes, you have to justify you are using the 5 databases. It may be that they are the leading journals in your, or they are the top the databases that contain papers in your discipline. So usually you want to maybe go online and go and search for papers that have used these databases and cite them as your references to back them. Oh, okay. Please, did you hear Moro's question? Some of you are saying you couldn't hear it.
No, please.
Okay, so he was asking.
I can't hear when he's asking question.
Oh, I see. So he was asking whether he needs to provide justification for the databases that he selects, and that is a response that I gave. That yes, you need to. Some reviewers would want to have a justification for that. Others will just overlook it because already when they are reading your work and they see that you use Emerald, Scopus, or Web of Science, they know that these are top, these are highly recognized databases. So they won't even ask you, but others would have you justify why you are using the databases selected. And so it is important that you know the discipline in which you are, so that when you are providing justification, you know what justification to give. For example, if I were doing an MIS one, I would say I selected the 18-year scholars basket. I used Scopus, I used Emerald, I used JSTOR. But those are where you usually would find the IS papers published in the IS discipline. Those in the health sciences have their own databases. Those in marketing would have their own databases. Those in HR will have their own databases. But some databases are also cross-disciplinary. So let's note that as well. Please, can you see my screen? I'm showing a Word document. Oh, it's not showing. Let me.
Yes, it's gone.
Okay, sorry.
I can't see it.
Is it showing now?
Yes, it's showing now.
Okay, so this is an example of I don't have power. Okay, sorry. So sorry, my laptop is coming off. Okay, so this is an example of the keywords. So and database selected. So it says databases that was selected was Scopus. The search fields were in the title, abstract, and keywords. And that is why I was saying that documenting the process is very important. If we don't document, we cannot produce this table. And then we are saying that the search fields search keywords that we used were database, data analytics, or big data in analytics. And this one was focused within the African context, so Africa or developing countries or developing economies. And then here is a table on the inclusion and exclusion criteria. So we are saying that the database is Scopus. We are not including any other database, so we are excluding that. We are saying that the document type, we're only focusing on full access journal articles, conference papers, and book chapters only. And then in the exclusion, we are saying that papers that we can access, we have access to. Papers that are not full, we are not focusing on conference review, we are not doing editorials, we are not doing doctoral dissertation, we are not doing master dissertation. We are not looking at textbooks, letters, we write on literature reviews, reports, letters. We are excluding all of these. The publication stage, we are looking at final publications only. We are not considering articles in press. The period we are looking at inception. So this inception means that from the time that papers were published in the database till December 2021. So any paper published after 2021, we're not including it. For language only, so papers that are non-English, we are taking them out. So things like languages like Chinese, German, Spanish, we are taking all of them out. And so the initial set gave us 111, and then after the inclusion criteria, we were left with 89 papers. Please, any questions? So let me just show you the final thing for the class. So this would be okay. Is my screen showing this?
Yes.
Okay, so I am showing you the final thing that Prof was very critical about that I show you for this class. And it is this particular model. It's called the Prisma process flow model, and that sort of gives you makes your search very scientific in the sense that all the documentation that we did. So identification of it's made up of 4 stages where you identify the papers. So you identify the records through database searching, the initial search, which was in Web of Science from here, EBSCOhost from here, PubMed from here, Wiley Online, and then Science Direct. So this is where the identification of the papers were done. Once you have that, then what you do is that you will do a screening of the papers that you have identified, right? So whilst you are doing the screen, notice that there are some duplicates in there, and then you take them out, and then you go next to the records that you screened, which will be 33 papers.
Hello,
and then once you move down, you realize that yes, please go ahead.
Hello, sorry, I think my hand has been up. We have another class. Even though we are interested, we think that.
Okay, please let me just walk you through. It's just 1 minute, please. Let me just finish this. So you do the screening from record screened, and then records excluded from the screening, and then you move next is which papers are eligible for inclusion, and that will be 30 papers. whilst you do that, which papers did you take out? And this is based on the exclusion and inclusion criteria. So whether it's full text, the language issues, and all that, all within that space, and then you do the exclusion. And then the final one that will be left is what you have as the button here for your study. Is any questions, Sam? I think our time is up, so if not, then we'll call it the end of the session.
I think we have a lot of questions. I have a lot of questions, but maybe I'll spend a little bit of time and then go through and then see. Sure. The question would be, would you be available to us at some point if we ask? Because this is quite a lot of information.
Yes, maybe. I mean, Prof has to sanction that, so maybe we can discuss that later in other sessions, maybe next week. But if you still have questions, maybe we can see how I'll make myself available to answer those questions. But
all right,
please,
the
Prof is also going to publish a book on this particular prism. It will be included in his August release of the Research Made Easy book. So that would also be helpful to you along the line. All right, so thank you all for coming. And enjoy the rest of your day.
Hello, sorry. Please, can we also have you face-to-face, in-person lectures? Yeah.
Face-to-face. I mean, it will depend on my availability actually. So let's see how it goes. At the moment, this is the only time that Prof has for the sessions. Oh, go ahead.
Hello, Bed. Hello.
Can we also please have the recording?
I'll try and see if I can get a recording to you. So please, I think we have to end now. So. Thank you all for coming.
Yes, please. That would really help.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Penu.
Hey, madam, how did you know my surname?
Thank you, Obed.
It was on the screen.
Thank you. FBI and CIA inspector.
Hello, Obed.